Hey, it's the real Jason Duncan, and you're listening to The Root of All Success. Today, we have a very special episode to release for you here on episode number 307 of The Root of All Success. I was recently a guest on Small Business Straight Talk podcast with Amber De La Garza. Had a great conversation with her. She's a productivity specialist. I think you're going to like her show if you ever go find her show and listen to it. But I wanted to release this because I thought the conversation was really good between me and Amber on her show. And so good that I thought, just like I normally do, if they're good conversations, we'll release it as a special episode here. So I hope you listen and enjoy. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment and let me know what you think about these special episodes.
Hey, Jason. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I am fantastic, Amber.
Oh my gosh. We were just talking right before we hit chat that I was on your podcast. You took a quick trip, and then now here we are on my podcast. So it's great to catch up with you again.
Likewise. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So I would love to just dive in. And before we get into our main topic, I would love to just hear a little bit about yourself that we didn't hear in your official bio. So, what got you to this point where you're coaching people on how to exit their business without exiting?
So the idea here is that I think it was in 2017, I hired a business coach for the first time. And I'd never had a business coach, and I didn't even really know what that was. Hired this business coach, and he came in and really did a great job of helping us get our business to the next level. And I remember having a conversation with him at one point. I don't remember if it was I think it was probably late 2018. And he said, Jason, what would you do taking everything you know now and you start it all over? Would you start this kind of business? I'm like, no way, not in a million years would I start this business, because that business was not anything I was passionate about. It was simply an opportunity that I took, and it turned out really well. I mean, we became a multimillion-dollar company. Inc. magazine, Entrepreneur magazine recognized this. I became a millionaire. My partner's net worth continued to grow. Like everything was clicking along pretty well. But that business and that industry had nothing. I had no interest. And he said, okay, well, what does that mean to you then? What do you want? What do you want to do? And it wasn't immediate, but over the course of the next several months, I kind of made the decision. I wanted to get out of the business. I wanted to exit. I wanted to sell the business. I loved my employees. I loved being the CEO of the business. I loved leading, but I didn't like that industry. I didn't like what I was doing. And so I said, all right. And BJ is the name of my coach. I said, all right, BJ, how do we sell this thing? And he goes, well, you can't. And I'm like, what?
Whoa.
He goes, well, the reason you want out is the same reason nobody would want to buy it. And you want out because you don't want to run daily operations, the industry thing aside. Like the industry, people love the industry, but like you want out because you don't want to run it. And you're running it. You're the key. You're the linchpin. It's not worth anything. I said, you've seen our books. Like we have a 7-figure bottom line. We're good. He goes, no. He goes, that it's still, you're gonna have a hard time selling it for what you really need for this business. So that took me on a journey to figure out how to get out of the weeds without exiting, how to do it. And I ultimately did, and ended up writing a book about it. And now I'm coaching other people how to do the same thing.
Incredible. Man, the power of a coach that can ask a good question. Yeah. Like that question seated and sat with you like, okay, like what's next now that I've answered that question? That's incredible. All right. So this came from your own personal struggle, challenge, and how you wanted to overcome it. And how did you get to the point where you had to make peace with that you were not going to be able to exit the company the way you wanted to?
Well, that was pretty easy, because for me, it was, hey, let's sell the business. It's got to be worth X number of millions of dollars. And then it wasn't. So it was okay. But at the time, I was making really good money. I mean, between my business partner at the time, who was not with me during the exit, he and I parted ways before the exit ultimately ended up happening. We were pulling quite a bit of money individually. So we were doing really well. And so my thought was, well, how can I get this thing to run without me and I still make that money? And that was what I was really aiming at. How do I exit without exiting, which is how that phrase ended up coming along. And it was another coach later, after it all happened, that I said that phrase to, just because that was the only way I knew how to describe it. I had not coined it or anything. It was just, I just said it. Hey, I'd exit, but I didn't exit. Kind of like exit without exiting. I said it and he goes, that's it. And he knew, he's like, that's the thing. That's what you need to talk about. That's what you need to write about. And that's what ultimately I ended up writing the book, Exit Without Exiting. And I started telling the story. But for me, Amber, it wasn't hard to come. I didn't have to come to peace with the fact that I couldn't sell it. I had to come to peace with the fact that, I was going to do a different way that I thought ultimately would be better. Now, it never ends the way you want it to. This is not a storybook. Disney did not write this story.
Yeah.
And so there were lots of bumps. There were lots of potholes. There were lots of problems. And, but it did get me to a place where now I can exercise my gifts that I believe that God's given me. I'm living in the center of my joy, my passion, and my purpose. I'm leading a mastermind. I've got, almost 30 people that are in this thing all across the country. And I'm making a difference in families. I'm making a difference in their communities because of what I experienced and what I've gone through. And I couldn't ask for more.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well, I want to know more. You had shared with me, and I think it was even off camera from when you had an interview, you shared with me the tiers of entrepreneurship. And when you shared those with me, I was like, oh my gosh, like that's probably the basis of what you're ultimately trying to teach your entrepreneurs to do. And then it's through your framework. Is that correct?
That is correct. So yeah, that was something that it took a few years of iterating before we realized, oh, this is a way to describe what we're doing. Because anytime you start something, it's like, okay, I know what I think I want to do, and you start doing it, and then it iterates. There changes. The strategy changes 6 or 7 times before you find the one that works. And so now we have found the one that makes sense, that people understand. That's the 3 tiers of entrepreneurial evolution.
So I want you to share those with us, because when you shared it with me, I'm nodding my head. And I love how transparent you're being about, like, there was a lot of iterations. This wasn't like, oh, I took a shower, had a light bulb moment, and there it was, clear as day. It really is. And it's about using your words, going to the market, helping your clients, getting feedback. And you're like, is there a different way to more succinctly say it? I can tell you that over the years with my own frameworks, I'll be like, we have an edit, ladies and gentlemen. Like, I had an aha, and then there's another iteration of it. And I just had that, and I was like, do I re-record all the videos, or do I do a disclaimer that we just edited the framework a little bit? And anyways, we chose to edit it without recording videos, because it's like, no, like as soon as I got that clarity, you want to give it to the person that you're serving because you've made it that much better. So share with us your 3 tiers as it is today, and how that has guided you helping your clients.
So I believe that there are 3 tiers to the entrepreneurial evolution, and they can be described as owner-operator, owner-manager, and owner-investor. Those are the 3 tiers. And so the bottom of a pyramid, if you look at the pyramid, at the bottom of that pyramid is the owner-investor, or owner-operator rather. The owner-operator is is 95% of entrepreneurs. They are owning the business, they're operating the business, they have a job, and they've created a job for themselves. That's tier 1. And most entrepreneurs, 95%, 92 to 95% stay in tier 1 and never move up. And they're focused on asset. They're not focused on assets at all. They're only focused on activity. They're focused on activity. What can I do? How do I do it? How do I do it? And they're just grinding. They bought into the lie that hustle and grind is how you become successful.
Yeah.
And that's where they stay. Tier 2 entrepreneurs are owner managers. Now, these are folks that have figured out, okay, if I put some systems in place and put some people, I don't have to do everything myself. I can get other people to do it. And that's good, but they still are the linchpin.
Yeah.
Like when I exited my business, I had, I think, it was close to 20 employees. I had 4 department leaders that were doing a good job. So I had done a good job, but I was still the linchpin. Like the decision still went across my desk. I had made it into owner manager tier 2 status, but I was still stuck in managing.
Yeah.
Tier 3 is the owner investor. And these folks are focused on asset over activity. They're actually looking at the business as an asset. Their business is an investment. And I'd say less than 5%, less than 2 or 3% really ever make it into tier 3. I'll give you some examples. Jeff Bezos is a tier 3 entrepreneur. right? Elon Musk, tier 3 entrepreneur. Steve Jobs was a tier 3 entrepreneur. Had they stayed in tier 1 or even tier 2, we wouldn't know Apple. We wouldn't know Amazon. We wouldn't know Elon and all his companies, Tesla, et cetera, because had they stayed locked into the prison of entrepreneurship, the ironic prison of entrepreneurship at the bottom levels of this entrepreneurial evolution, they would have never achieved the potential. And we as a company, or excuse me, as a country, as a world, wouldn't be experiencing what they brought to us. So I believe those are the 3 tiers, and we all move through them. Most people get stuck at the bottom.
Okay. And so, when you are in the first tier, you are busy. You said grinding it out every day. You're working in the business, probably less on the business, far less on the business. And the reason, and you and I, we align on a lot of things, but one thing that I think we really agree on is that it's their time management. It's the lack of time, or the story that they tell themselves they don't have the time to enact these strategies to be able to move from tier 1 to tier 2. Are you in agreement that that's a major challenge that business owners are facing when trying to move up these levels?
Yeah, I think it's oversimplifies it to say it this way because it's such a cliche, but they are focused on reacting rather than being proactive. And I know that's such a cliche, but the reality is the lower you are on the pyramid of the entrepreneurial evolution, the more reactive work that you do. You just react to what happens. I was just leading a mastermind roundtable discussion right before I got on this call, and we talked about focus management and time management. And we talked about what are the distractions. And I had to admit that for me, email is my biggest distraction. I think I manage it fairly well, but it's still my biggest distraction. And I know that if I leave my Gmail tab open on my computer, I don't have any beeps or dings or any visuals that tell me I got an email. But if it's just there and I happen to click in and see, I can be sucked in for an hour on doing something I shouldn't be. And that's reactive mode. And I have to recognize that myself.
Yeah.
Just because we move through these tiers of entrepreneurial evolution doesn't mean we somehow become immune to distractions. We just do better at managing them the higher we get on the pyramid.
Absolutely. You're saying that it's a cliche, but it's literally everything that I'm teaching about strategies. I'm like, if you want to move from being reactive to proactive, planning your day, planning your week. Like, in my opinion, we don't plan our day because the day's going to go as planned. It actually just puts you in the driver's seat. So when it doesn't go as planned, you're better equipped to make some decisions and not play defense all day. And there's such an energy shift from going reactive to proactive about the joy of your work. Like, it's not joyful to play defense every day, all day in your businesses. Would you agree with that?
Right. You got to get out and score some points.
Right. And so what are, these strategies for time management that you can use to just, and it's not overnight. That's the thing too. It's not like, oh, I planned my day, so suddenly I'm playing offense. It's consistently doing these strategies that's going to get you out of the weeds, kind of lift your head above the day-to-day. And more importantly, probably create the time and space that's needed to apply some of the strategies that you teach your clients on how to exit. Which leads me to, I would love to hear some of these strategies. How do you help your clients go the 92 to 95% that do not have much time to work on their business? How do you help elevate them through these 3 tiers?
So the way that the XOS method works, XOS stands for Exit or Operating System. There are 7 stages that you kind of work through. So you think about these in a horizontal. You start on the left, you move to the right, just like anything else. The tiers are just where you are at any given time in your growth.
Got
So
it.
think about that. So the tiers are, hey, I'm starting up as an entrepreneur and I'm stuck in owner operator status. I want to move up to owner manager. Then I want to move up to owner investor. So keep that in mind. So these stages are like these linear, you start here and you move through. And as you move through, you'll find out that you also moved up. You moved up on the pyramid. So the 7 stages, without getting too boring, too detailed and to make this boring, but it starts with basic delegation. That's stage 1.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make sure as an entrepreneur, you've got to be comfortable delegating tasks out. And the problem with most people, the reason they don't delegate is that they don't know how to do it, but they don't trust people.
Yeah.
They don't trust. And if you boil down anything that you're not successful at in life, it can come down to lack of trust or lack of discipline. One of those 2 things. And so for delegation, it's lack of trust. That's stage one. I'll let you respond to that.
I have a question about that. You actually answered my first question, which was like, is this a skill that can be learned? So it sounds like you believe it's a skill that can be learned. But if the number one challenge is trust, how do you shift that? How do you have trust for people that need training and more support? And probably in your own mindset, for a lot of people, they're saying, I can do it quicker, I can do it faster, I have less errors, right? So how do you shift that thinking into trusting those on your team?
So I teach a six-step method over 30 days on how to become a master delegator.
You do.
And that works you through these ideas of lack of trust. And without getting into all of that, because I don't want to bore your listeners, but the part of that is you've got to let them fail. Because there's something that we all know, and that's the law of discovery. And the law of discovery teaches us that we learn more by what we discover on our own than what we are told or taught. So your employees that you don't trust because you can do it faster and better than he or she can, well, first of all, that's true. You can. But at one time, you sucked at it. At one time, you didn't know how to do that.
Yep.
And now you're really good at it. And the reason you're really good at it now is you discovered on your own how to accomplish that. Delegation, if done correctly, allows the employee, allows the team member to work through a period of failure so that they understand what success looks like. Because if you just say, do it exactly this way every single time, don't turn right, don't turn left, you're just creating a clone that still relies on you and your ingenuity, and that doesn't get you out of the owner operator status.
Yeah.
So this delegation about lack of trust, you have to let them fail. And I teach something called the 80% rule. When you delegate something to somebody, when they can do it at 80% of what you expect, that's when you know it's their task forever. It's no longer your task. You can't expect 100%. I hired a guy right out of college. This has been over a decade ago. And he didn't know anything. He was right out of college, didn't know anything. And I hired him to take on some of the operational tasks that I had been doing in the company at that time. And he made a lot of mistakes. No, terribly critical. Nobody was going to go to the hospital. No building was going to blow up, and I wasn't going to go to jail. But he made some mistakes. Well, over time, he finally got to the place where he could do it at 80% of my expectation. And at that moment, I made the decision. His name was Ricky. I said, Ricky, this is now your job. I'm not doing this anymore. You are 100% in charge of this. Do you understand? Yes, sir. Now, that included purchasing decisions for the company from vendors. Now, I could have purchased this stuff and saved perhaps tens of thousands of dollars every quarter because I'm better at negotiating. I could tell the vendor, come on, man, he wasn't that guy. But had I stepped in, the tens of thousands of dollars I might have saved would have cost me hundreds of thousands in time and lost opportunity that I could go out and create somewhere else as I'm building the asset. Eventually, Ricky got to a place where he was 120% of my expectation.
I was going to ask you that. You're so good. You're answering all my questions before I asked them.
He could do it so much better than me being involved in that.
Yeah.
That's what good delegation looks like. But that ain't going to happen overnight. Now, if you're comfortable being a slave to your own job in the business that you started, if you're comfortable, knock yourself out. Do it yourself. But if you ever want to be owner manager and eventually an owner investor, you got to trust people. You got to delegate.
Yeah. I mean, even when you had that conversation, when you recognized he was at 80%, like that had to have given him that confidence and that ownership to then get to the 100%. And to your point, you said 120, but I was just so curious what the end of that story was like, okay, once you took the training wheels off, was that what he needed to get it to the finish line?
Yeah. Well, I remember when I was learning to ride a bike when I was a young kid, probably 7. I don't know how old I was. And it was on Setliff Place in East Nashville on the sidewalk. My dad had bought me this little, it was a Schwinn Spider, had a banana seat on it. It was the coolest bike in the world. I thought it was awesome. And I remember the day we took the training wheels off, because I remember sitting on the front porch and he took them off. And everybody who rode a bike with training wheels remembers that you have a slight tip side to side before you touch those extra wheels. And I knew what that feeling was like. And then the idea is you move those training wheels further up over time because they're on a sliding bracket so that the tip becomes further, but they're still there to catch you. But I remember the day that he took them off, and Dad, of course, held the back of the seat and was walking behind me to ride down the sidewalk. And we got going pretty fast. It was as fast as I'd ever gone on a bike with my dad. And I got all the way to the end of the sidewalk and I turned around to say, Dad, isn't that awesome? And he was nowhere around. I had learned to ride it myself and I didn't even know. And that's what delegation is like, is that you've got to give them the training wheels. They're going to tip right and left, pull those training wheels up a little at a time, hold the back of the seat so they learn how to ride. And eventually they can ride all the way by themselves. But it gets better than that because eventually I could jump my bike. I could jump over things. I could do tricks on my bike, but not that day. Not that day. That day I could just simply ride down the sidewalk and back. As entrepreneurs, we've got to understand that if we don't invest time and energy into delegating and training our employees, we're going to be stuck holding the back of that seat for the rest of our lives. And I only have two hands. I don't know about you. I can't only hold so much.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much freedom in getting over that hump of delegation, what the reward is on the other side, and really looking at that long-term game. Like you have to have a long-term investment in the vision to be able to get through the uncomfortableness. As you were sharing those stories, I was like, and you had to have patience with Ricky, right? So there's a lot of other skill sets there, and you had to have understanding that he was going to cost you money, and that's okay because you were losing opportunity costs to go make hundreds of thousands and have other opportunities. So not just the here and now and the discomfort of delegating, but what's the end result.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and then after delegation, that's stage one. If you can't get that, because that's a mindset thing. If you can't get that, the rest of the stages won't matter. Stage two is assembling your support squad. You've got to hire administrative tasks and people that can do the tasks that need to be done just to keep the business moving forward. Stage three is your A team. It's assembling your A team, getting your A team on board, trained up. These are the people that you can rely on if you are not present. If you are in hospital for a little while, if you go on vacation or if some emergency comes up and you're not there, who do you rely on? Those are the people you start building up. And then stage four is when you start doing systems. This is when you really start putting systems and automation into place. And most people right now might be saying, wait a minute, I thought we were supposed to put systems in to begin with. Well, if you put systems in too early, you end up having systems that still rely on you. Because you've got to learn to delegate and you've got to put people in the right place so that systems have somewhere to work. Because systems shouldn't matter who's there. Systems and processes work without any particular person. Then once you get the systems in place, that's when you start moving into what we start seeing the fun. This is when you start wading into that entrepreneur who is in tier 3, the owner investor. And this is when you start seeing you're building a passive profits machine. That's when your business is starting to make profit without you actively being involved. So you passively are sitting back and still receiving income and profitability. And then stage 6 is exit without exiting. Stage 6 is when you get the ultimate choice to step away from the business and maintain ownership and control, but you don't have to operate it. Or you can move to stage 7, which is the ultimate exit, and that's selling. And, we've got clients right now in the Exeter Club who have come to us to say, look, I want to learn how to get through these stages because I want to sell right now. And I just found out today, one of our clients has actually listed with one of our partners his business for sale, which is exciting. And he's going to get that sold probably within 6 to 7 months, if not sooner. So that's very, very exciting. But then there are other people who join and say, look, I just need you to help me with the delegation and hiring the right people because I'm a mess. I'm doing really well financially, but it's a mess. Yeah. And then ultimately we'll get them to a place where they can exit without exiting and then maybe even sell the business.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some of the biggest challenges that your clients see around their A team? So is it like rinse and repeat? Is it taking multiple hires? How are they refining their leadership to really support that A team?
So are you saying just challenges with the personnel or finding the personnel?
I guess it was a compound question. It was both. When you definitely covered it, but I know that this isn't a 1 month or 2 month investment. You're kind of in that stage for a while of building the A team. So what are some common challenges people have till they're like, check, A team done, got it?
Well, I think the biggest challenge initially is finances. Because, I've got a client right now. He's a very, very, very small company, a very small team, I say very low. Very low is not a really good categorization, but low revenue as compared to the rest. Most of the guys I work with are doing 3 million and up. That's generally what we work with. Or if you have at least 300K in bottom line, then we can work with you no matter what the revenue is, because you got to have some money to invest to like an A team. Yeah. Well, he's at this place where he's lower on the revenue scale. He's got a small team. And he's in the Exeter Club and he's like, I have to hire an operations manager. This will not move beyond where we are today without that. And he's right.
Yeah.
He's right. And he's got all the other place. He's got the sports support squad in place. He's got to do it. Well, he's got to pay money for that. Well, where's that money going to come from? What's going to come out of his pocket? Because he's making a certain amount of money because he's the entrepreneur. He's pulling 100% of the distributions and the profitability out. So that money just doesn't materialize. At some point, you got to say, I got to pay for this. And so I know what he's going to pay. And I'm not going to say what it is, but I know that dollar amount. And it's not an insignificant amount. There's a lot of people listening to this show that would say, yeah, I remember when I had to have that amount of money just to pay my bills. And now as entrepreneurs, we make a lot more than that. But he's got to pay that out of his pocket. That mental jump from being, I'm not doing it because I can do it myself and save the money, to saying, you know what, if I don't do it, I'm always going to stay here. There's a dip. There's a dip in outcome. There's a dip in finances, but you're going to survive the dip. My own personal example is I had 4 department directors, and I can give exact money on this. I had 4 department directors when I decided to step away from daily operations. And I was making, as I said, very good money at the time. And I made a decision. You know what? I'm going to take $80,000 out of my take-home pay so that it doesn't put a strain on the finances of the company. I'm going to give each of the department directors $20,000 and I'm going to tell them where it's coming from. I'm taking this out of what I would have taken home. I'm giving you 20, you 20, you 20, you and 20. And my expectation is you're now going to be elevated to VP status of your department, and you're going to report to me. We're going to start once a week, and that's it. And then it's going to be once a month, and it's going to be once a quarter, and then twice a year. Otherwise, you're running this thing. This is your baby now. You got it. So making that shift to that A team mentally on the finances side, that's probably one of the biggest challenges that people have. It's more than personnel, because the personnel are there. Mm-hmm. If you're a good person, you trust people, you're going to find good people. Yeah. But you got to get over the money.
Yeah. Oh, those are great examples. How long does it generally take for someone to get from like tier 1 to tier 2?
Tier 1 to tier 2. So tier 1 is tier 1 is really understanding delegation and is making sure your support squad's there in your A team. That's up to the person.
Yeah.
You should be able to do this pretty quickly because it's mostly a mindset. There's this thing I refer to as hero syndrome. And the hero syndrome, every entrepreneur has it. They're the hero of their own business. They swoop in with a cape on. They put out all the fires. They save all the babies. Mm-hmm. They do everything they need to do because they're a hero. The problem with most entrepreneurs, they never take the cape off. They love the feeling that they get from being the hero of the business. They love being in the mix every day. But if you can take that cape off, you can move up that tier really quickly. And that's a pride thing. It's an ego thing. I don't mind somebody else being better at something than me in my business, because ultimately I'm still going to make more money. I'm going to make the most money in my business. And if I'm not, I'm probably not doing something right. I need to make a certain amount of money. And if I find somebody that can do it better than me, that's great. I'm going to make more money, because if I pay them $200,000, guess what? I'm probably also making an extra $200,000 because I couldn't do it otherwise. Moving through those stages, I've seen people do it in under a year, all the way to owner investor, because they follow the game plan.
Yeah.
But that's not starting from scratch. That's a person who's probably already doing $3 million in revenue, and we just need to twist and tweak their mindset. Now, if you're starting from scratch, this is going to take a little longer, but not forever.
Yeah. I have a question. Do you have clients, or have you had experiences where they're getting this time back, they're moving through the levels, but they keep inserting themselves because they haven't yet found the next thing that's going to catch their attention, like the next business, the next idea? And how much do you, not just see that, but like, are you helping them say, hey, don't look over here, like let that work for you. You're working the system, go do something else so you're not messing it up?
Yes, there are 2 ends to that story.
Yeah.
One end of that story is they quit my mastermind and they do whatever the heck they want, because they realize that they're married and attracted to that job, not the business, the job so much that what we're offering them is not attractive enough to change. So they stay where they're at, they stuck, and good for them. They're making good money. If they want to work 70 hours a week and have a job and own a business, who am I to change their mind? That's them. That's one way that ends. The other way is that they keep getting pulled back in. And I have to say, look, you're never going to be able to move beyond this if you don't get out. And showing them business valuation numbers, really helps. So for example, we do a business valuation with all members when they first come in. They get to see how much your business is worth. Our pledge is that if you follow our plan within 1 year, that business valuation, which we'll do again at the end of the year, will be 30% higher. So if you follow the plan, you're worth 30% more. Well, guess what the plan doesn't include? You being involved in the mix. So if you stay involved in the mix, and let's say your business is worth 10 million, we're just going to use round numbers. If your business is worth 10 million, it could be worth 13 million by the end of the year. So a $3 million increase. So if I told you, hey, I'm going to give you 3 million, you just can't go in the office every day. Are you going to be good with that? Or are you still going to go to the office every day? Because I don't know what you're going to be doing to create $3 million worth of value that you could, if you just walked away. Now, it's not that simple,
right?
But this is just an illustration.
I totally get what you're saying. Yeah. And so I heard you with your example that you had the same kind of like training wheels with your 4 department heads where you're like, we'll meet once a week, then once a month, then once a quarter. Is that something similar that you're sharing with your clients? Like, how do they transition from 2 to 3? Is it like, hey, I'm going on 2 weeks, I'm going on a month vacation? Like, are they testing the waters, or is it that at some point they just have to like cut the team off cold turkey?
Well, no, I don't think cutting a team off cold turkey is very helpful in most instances. So what I think most people end up doing is they do versions of some of this stuff. I was much more on purpose when I exited. Like, I knew I did not want to be here, and I'm going to get these people ramped up as fast as possible. A lot of the people I work with are still in love with their business. They like their industry. They like the people they work with. Outside of the employees, they still like the people they work with. And so they're not as anxious to get out as I was. I was very anxious to get out. And I made a lot of mistakes because of that, by the way. But the people who still like it, it might just be a version of, hey, I just bought a boat and I'm going to start going every, once a month. I'm going to be gone for half of a week and all through the weekend with my family out on the boat.
Yeah.
Okay. You used to never do that before. Hey, you said you used to love to play golf. You haven't played golf in 3 years. Oh, now you're playing around every single week. So it's just those baby steps of getting out. There'll be people like me want to jump off the deep end. I'm out. I'm not coming back. I don't think that's the best way to do it in most cases.
Yeah.
But if you can go on a vacation and not take your laptop and not check your email for a week, congratulations, because you are in the minority. And that's what I want all my clients to be able to do.
That's incredible. Well, thank you so much for sharing your framework with us. There are some ways in which, obviously, you've mentioned your mastermind group, your book. Is there any other ways in which they can work with you or connect with you to learn more about your methodology, Exit Without Exiting?
Well, I would love to offer your listeners, special for them, a free copy of my book. They just covered the shipping and handling. They can go to therealjasonduncan.com, therealjasonduncan.com/free book. They just pay, I think it's $5 in the continental United States for shipping. If you're overseas, sorry, you're going to have to go to Amazon and pick up a copy, but it's there. You can get a copy there, but we'll send it free anywhere in the continental United States. You just pay the $5 or $6. I don't remember what it is. It's something nominal. I'll send you a free copy of the book. Check that out. And if you're really interested in joining the mastermind while you're at therealjasonduncan.com, just go look at the Exeter Club. Check it out. Set up a schedule, set up a time to meet with me. Now, look, if you don't have at least $3 million in revenue or $300K in bottom line net profit, you probably don't qualify yet. But there are other resources on the site that you could look into. But if you're in that spot, we should talk.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. This was great. I love having these conversations.
Thank you.
Attention business owners. Feeling burnout from running your business? Uncertain if you're nearing burnout? Take our free 10-question business burnout test at businessburnouttest.com to discover where you stand. With just 10 quick questions, you'll learn how to immediately begin making changes to regain freedom and success. Cut your daily operations time in half. Improve your quality of life and prepare your business for your future exit without losing revenue or profit. Visit businessburnouttest.com now and take the test. Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Follow Jason on social media at The Real Jason Duncan. See you again next time here on The Root of All Success.